New Dimensions by Void King Chapter 1 Captain's Log Stardate 46703.7 Jean-Luc Picard recording. The Enterprise has been ordered to return to the site of the Dyson sphere. The science ships in the area have found that the internal star has become unstable at a much faster rate than originally anticipated. There is some speculation that enclosing the star may be a contributing factor. Unfortunately, we now believe that the collapse of the sphere is imminent. The science vessels, the USS Newton and USS Observation, may not be equipped to withstand the gravitational changes which will occur. Therefore, the Enterprise will take over their duties and take all possible readings during this event. The destruction of the Dyson sphere will be a great loss to the Federation in our scientific endeavors. Captain Picard paced on the bridge as they approached the coordinates for the Dyson sphere. Their last experience with this architectural marvel had almost resulted in the loss of his ship if it were not for the heroism and ingenuity of his chief engineer and the unlikely contribution of Captain Scott, a famous Federation engineer who managed to end up in the 24th century through yet another engineering miracle. Since Scotty had left the Enterprise for his own adventures, Picard had looked up his record and was amazed not only at his personnel accomplishments but the reputation he had as an improviser. Picard truly missed the Scotsman. "Captain, we are in communication range of the Newton and Observer," said Worf in his typical gruff voice. "Hail Captain Norden," said Picard. On the screen appeared a mid-50-ish captain from the Newton in a Federation uniform. "Captain Picard, I see you are here to take over the fun. We are sending out sensor readings and logs from our observations. Please tell your science team not to mess them up too much." Picard looked over at Commander Riker and smiled. He understood the animosity. The Newton and Observer were highly qualified science ships who had made some remarkable discoveries. If not for the potential danger to these ships, they certainly would have been the people on the ground. "Captain Norden, we will do everything we can to close this event properly. What is the status of the sphere?" The scientific captain looked down at his console on his command chair. "The star continues to become more volatile. If you scan the sphere, you can actually see intrusions and ruptures in the outer shell. What is left of the internal atmosphere is beginning to vent. We estimate 8 hours before complete failure." Captain Picard sighed and shook his head. "Understood, Captain. I believe you and the Observer need to get to a safe distance. We will stay as long as we can." Captain Norden nodded his head and disconnected the visual link. "The Newton and Observer are moving away to their assigned staging area," reported Worf. "All science stations, begin scanning the sphere. Please coordinate with Commander Data on finding or any request for additional resources," Commander Riker ordered. "Engineering, please monitor all systems and ensure we have a runway to leave if we need to." Suddenly, the Enterprise shuddered. "Report," said Picard. "The star seems to have accelerated its instability. The 8-hour window may have been a significant underestimate of the time remaining. The sphere is beginning to lose structural cohesion and is starting to come apart. Interestingly, this seems to be happening on a symmetric basis which was not expected. We expected the sphere to collapse in on the star momentarily. The android did not experience fear, but Riker could have sworn he sounded nervous. I recommend getting some distance between us and the sphere." "Helmsman, back us out quarter impulse," ordered the captain. "No response, Captain," responded the young ensign. "The gravity is getting too strong." "Yellow alert. Full impulse," responded the captain. "Captain, the sphere has completely collapsed. It will be impacting the star in 2 minutes. There is a tremendous amount of energy leaking from the sphere of the same sort that interfered with our systems the last time we were here," reported Data. "Engineering, we need more power," barked Riker. "We are beginning to fall into the star," reported the helmsman. "Our rate of fall is accelerating. 60 seconds to impact. Outer hull temperature rising. Go to warp," ordered the captain. "Sir, the sphere has collapsed on the star. We are getting some peculiar readings from the star. It seems to be taking on wormhole characteristics, but there is something else. Not now, Data. If we don't break free, we will suffer the same fate as the sphere." "Captain, we cannot generate a warp field." Picard heard his chief engineer over the comms. "The gravitational field keeps disrupting it. All hands abandon ship. All hands abandon ship," was the last thing Picard could say before looking up at the ever-growing star on the screen. But then something changed. Instead of being a bright fireball in space surrounded by the Dyson sphere's collapsing remains, it darkened and developed a halo. Insufficient time to abandon ship was the last thing he heard before impact. Then everything went dark. Emergency lighting flickered on, but the screen had gone black. The Enterprise seemed to moving. Everyone on the bridge held their breath as they waited for the ultimate deadly collision with the once encompassed star, but it never came. "Report," said Picard finally. "Well, we're not all dead," answered Riker. "We may want to about getting down to engineering." Just then the light began to come on and systems blinked. Picard recognized the startup sequence for many of the systems. "Do we have internal communications?" asked Picard. "Coming up now, sir," answered Worf. "Ship-wide," he ordered. "To all personnel. We do not know exactly what happened, but we appear to have come through reasonably intact. Damage control and triage teams, please report to Commander work damage and injuries. Science teams, as soon as able please complete a full scan of the area. Data, where are we?" Data looked down at his console. "We appear to be approximately where we were before. We are at the other side of the star. It is almost as if we passed through it. Captain, I recommend we contact the Observer and Newton and advise of our situation," interjected Commander Riker. "Mr. Worf, make it so." "Captain, the Newton and Observer are not appearing on scanners," said the Klingon. "They couldn't have gotten out of sensor range so quickly. Did they get caught up in this too?" asked the First Office. "Captain, something else very peculiar. I am detecting 2 planets in orbit. One Class J and one Class Y," interjected Data. "Planets?" asked Riker. "Where did those come from?" "Captain, just a thought. The material from the planets would have come in handy if I wanted to build a Dyson sphere." LaForgue had been listening on the comms. "Did we come through time?" asked Picard rhetorically. "Something else, sir. We're detecting a small craft. Potentially a shuttlecraft, although not Federation. It appears to be in distress. Work has always sounded suspicious." Riker and Picard looked at each other and shrugged. "All hands prepare to assist unknown vessel. Security and medical teams stand by."